Friends, you could gather a little bit comfortably as you can. Try to get some shade. It is a hot day. I know normally we wouldn't be drinking water, but for safety measures, if someone feels they need to drink water, we have water. In a minute, we are going to begin the service for Mrs. Elaine, Roslyn, Stein. If you have a cell phone or any noise-making device, please take a moment to turn it on silent. Officiating the service today is Rabbi Louis Lazovsky, Beis Medrash Hagadol of Kesser Marv. Ashrei hu ish asher lo halach b'atzas asher midrach ha'toim lo mod. Moshe b'leitzim lo yoshev kimi tavasanoch eftov so sayeh geom lo lo. Yokei chasol pagim mamash apio yitem b'tavole lo yibol. Asher yetzlech lo cheno Hashem kim kamot asher tifin ruach. Kein lo yakum rishon b'mishpat ha'toim v'adas tzadikim ki yirei Adonai derech tzadikim derech Shem toved. Happy is the one who has not followed the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the path of sinners, nor sat in the company of the scornful. Rather, that one's delight is in the Torah of the Lord, meditating in God's Torah day and night. And he'll be like a tree planted by streams of waters that yields its fruit in season, whose leaves will not wither, and whatever that one does prospers. Not so the wicked are like chaff that the wind drives away. Therefore the wicked shall not survive judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord loves the way of the righteous, but the ways of the wicked are doomed. Mizmor David Anomi Ogo Biolacha Mishkan Biar Kochech Oleichim Vuel Tzedek V'Ramis Bilvalo Lo Regal Al Shunav Lo Asal Reim Ra V'Cher Palo No Sal Krovo Nivze Bein of Nimas V'Zirei Adnoi Yichabed Yishpal Rav Lo Yomer Kaspel Lo Samaneshech V'Shochat Loki Al Naki Lokoch Osei Lelimo Leolam. A song of David, Lord, who may sojourn in your tent, who may dwell on your holy mountain, who walks in purity, does what is righteous, and speaks the truth from their heart, one who has no slander on the tongue, nor has done harm to a fellow, nor cast disgrace towards a neighbor, in whose eyes a contemptible person is repulsive, but who honors those who are in awe of the Lord, who swears truthfully even to the personal hurt and never retracts, who does not lend money on interest, nor take a bribe against the innocent. One who does these things never shall falter. 23rd Psalm, have that in your service jackets. Mizmor David Adonai Roi Lo Yachzor B'Nosteshu Yaritzeni Amenu Choshen Aleini Nafshi Shovei V'Ancheni Maglei Tzedek L'man Shemo Gam Ki Elech V'Geitz Almo V'Es Lo Yirora Ki Atay Modi Shiftich Mishantecha Heimo Yenachamuni Taroch L'Fonai Shulcha Neged Tzoroi V'Shanta B'Shem Roshi Kosi Ravoyo Aftol V'Chesed Yudfuni Koyimei Chayoy Shavti V'Beis Adonai L'Yirach Yamim. The song of David, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack. God makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside tranquil waters. God restores my soul and guides me in righteous paths for God's name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Your scepter and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the full view of my adversaries. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for length of days. The traditional Eishes Chayil, woman of valor prayer, from Proverbs chapter 31. Eishes Chayil mi yimtza v'rochok mipnini michra, v'atach bo le'bayla v'shala lo yechzor. G'lasu to v'lora ko yimei chayel, dorsha tzemer fishtim v'tas v'chefetz kapel. Hoyser kenyo socher mirchok tavilachma, v'takam yor laila v'titin tervla vesa, v'chokla naosea. Somos sadevati kocheu miprichaper notochorem, chog beos mosnea v'ta'ameitz rosea. Tama kitov sacholech bevelayla neira, yodel shilcha v'kisha v'chaper tomchu folech. Kaper porsa lioniv yodel shilcha leyevyon, losiro vesa mishalik yichlabesa lovishonim. Marvadim asalot sheish v'argam lavusha, not of a sharm ba'ala, b'shifta im zikni oretz. Sodi nasa v'tim kor v'chagar nasa l'knani, oz v'adu lavusha v'tisak l'yom ha'charon. Pia pasa b'chachma v'saras chesed al shona, tfil lichos beisa v'lachem atzlus lo sochel. Kama b'nevi yashrua ba'ala v'yhala, v'vos b'noso sochoel v'at, alit akulona. Sheker achevil ha'liyofi yishay rasanahit salol, tenulam priyadeh v'yalua b'sharim ma'asel. A woman of valor who can find, for her price is far beyond pearls, is her worth. Her husband's heartfelt trust is in her, and he lacks no lack of gain. She bestows goodness upon him and never harm all the days of her life. She seeks out wool and linen, and her hands work willingly. She is like a merchant fleet bringing her sustenance from afar. She rises while it is yet night and gives provisions to her household and direction to her maidens. She envisions a field and acquires it from the fruit of her handiwork. She plants a vineyard. With vigor she girds her loins and strengthens her arms. She discerns that her enterprise is good. Her lamp does not go out by night. Her hand she stretches forth to the distaff, and her palm support the spindle. She spreads out her palm to the poor and extends her hands to the destitute. She fears not snow for her household. Her entire household is clothed with scarlet wool. Fine covers she made herself, linen and purple wool are her clothing. Prominent at the gates is her husband, as he sits with the elders of the land. She makes a cloak and sells it, and deals a belt to the peddler. Strength and splendor are her raiment. She cheerfully awaits the last day. Her mouth is opened with wisdom, and the teachings of kindness are on her tongue. She oversees the ways of her household and partakes not the bread of idleness. Her children arise and praise her. Her husband, and he lauds her. Many daughters have done valiantly, but thou excellest them all. Grace is false and beauty is vain. A woman in awe of God, she should be praised. Give her of the fruit of her own hand, and let her deeds praise her in the gathering places. We're here to pay final tribute to Chaya Rezel Bas Eliezer Abba Cohen, to Elaine Roslyn Stein. Mrs. Stein was born in Chicago and passed away in Chicago. Her parents, Abel and Dorothy, are right here with her, as her whole family. She finished high school at Von Steuben, and she was employed with her parents in the Cragen department store at 5018 West Armitage. And all of the children worked there, and really were very, very dedicated to the family enterprise. She married Irving Stein, Yitzhak ben Moshe. They met on a blind date. They began their married life over the department store at 5018 Armitage. Then they lived at 3737 West Wilson. Then they were in Albany Park until 1961, and then in Wilmette. Her children, Jeffrey and Yolanda, Zvulun and Lynn, Robert and Harlan. Her grandchildren, Abra and Aaron, Ariel Dvora and Benjamin Kirshner, Daniel and Mati Stein. Her great-grandchildren are Shana Chaya, Kirshner, Ita Kirshner, Yosef Shalom Kirshner, Avram Shaya Kirshner, Eliana Stein, and Sarah Malka Kirshner. She took great nachas in her family, and this was a hallmark of what she stood for. She was dedicated to her family at all times and inspired them at all times. She felt that her children were exceptional, and if anything, God forbid, went wrong, she was always there for them. She was active in Beth Hillel when her children were growing up, but she worked her whole life, and that was what she did. She worked, and she was dedicated to her children and her family. She belonged to the Albany Park Hebrew congregation until 1961 for Jeffrey's bar mitzvah. Then she was at Beth Hillel, Ezras Israel, and then finally at Keser Marav. In terms of charities, she contributed to the Simon of Wiesenthal Center, to Israel Bonds, to many synagogues that she was affiliated with, and everything that came in the mail, all of the various solicitations, she was always generous to all of them, never turned any of them away, and unlike many people who don't do that, she was an example of a charitable person, as the Eishes Chayil laid out for us from Mishlei. In terms of her attributes, she was an old school mother, that her children were her life, and her life revolved around them. She was a great cook, and she had her set schedule for when she'd serve milchiks, when she served fleishiks, and she loved having everybody over for the holidays. I often wonder if Zvulun, his attraction to food, was related to his mom and her devotion to that. After all, when you have 4 hungry boys, you have to feed them, and you have to have wonderful food to keep them growing and on the right path. She loved her siblings. She was very, very close to all of her siblings. In the summers, the 3 families would go up to Michigan City, and the women were together, and then the men would come up for the weekends. And this is very, very special. Very few families today know this love and this development of family bonds. Again, as I mentioned before, her life revolved around her children, And any problems the boys ever got into had to be the neighbors' kids that were responsible. Couldn't be her kids. And she maintained this closeness to her children as they grew and as they got into different problems. We say in Yiddish, there's an expression in Yiddish, little children, little problems, big children, big problems. And she was always there for whatever advice that was necessary and any problem to help her family work through them. In retrospect, my son Elio Dove had mentioned that she had a lot in common with Rabbi Moshe Soloveitchik, who often had many adversities in life, but he was always smiling. You'd never know that there were problems, and Chaya Rezel was like Reb Moshe in that regard, that whenever something went wrong, she wouldn't have it on her face. She always had a smile on her face. She was a regal woman, and she was loved by all. She was a great mother-in-law. She was very close to Lynn and Lynn's parents. She spent Shabbosos with them, week in and week out, went on vacations with them, went to Eretz Yisrael with Lynn many, many times and always had a great time. She was very sociable. There were many couples that went together to many, many different events. She went on cruises and the like, and she enjoyed playing mahjong with her friends, and always was a source of inspiration and uplifting to everyone else. Some various anecdotes to tell us, or that we might learn of some of her traits. So before her marriage, the department store was held up, and she took great umbrage at this, and she said, "My father worked too hard to be held up and to lose all of his funds." So she took all the paper money out of the cash register and put it under her blouse so that the thieves, when they went in, shouldn't be able to get their hands on it. So it was a very, very inspiring approach that she had to risk herself for her parents and for all their hard work. One time, I'm told that she went on a camping excursion to the mountains, and a horse put his head in through the window, which kind of was very unsettling to her. But she was a good sport about it, and she continued on and enjoyed that. The family was very, very blessed to have her at Ariel and Benjamin's wedding. I remember her dancing. I remember the joy that radiated from her face. The only face that radiated more joy was Ariel's. She had such a nachas from seeing her granddaughter wed in New York. She, in her life, she always wanted to unite her family, and in the end of her life, she brought her sons together and closer, which was a silver lining that just as when she brought her boys to the store, they grew up together, so too she was able to bring the family together in the end. Those things that we live for during our lifetime, the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Almighty, rewards us and enables us that those things that we fought for, that we should be able to see them, they should be able to continue. And again, in spite of all the adversity that she had in her life, she was always smiling. At this time, I want to call on Daniel for his remarks, and then we'll continue.
Hey everyone, I'd like to thank everybody for coming and all the people joining us on the Zoom call. It's an emotional experience coming to an event like this. A lot of raw emotion coming out. I'll try to keep my composure. I apologize. Just bear with me. I could spend the next half an hour talking about how I feel, but I don't think that's the right thing. But one emotion I'd just like to speak about, everybody here that spent even more than a fraction of a second with my grandmother knows that if you had to define her by one emotion, it was love. it was leaking from her body. She exuded it in every single smile she gave, whether it was to the guy delivering her mail or her sons or her family. It was just such an amazing quality, and it just really carried with her entire life. I still remember, although I'm a bit too young, I remember her speaking about, the love she had for her father and mother. She adored her father. Such a special relationship. She told me a story once that when she was young, they would go to Michigan City, and of course her father had to go back to the store. So a couple of times, it wasn't just once, she would stow away in the middle of the night into the back seat of her father's car, and about an hour and a half into the ride, she'd pop up and scare the garbage out of and that's just who she was, When she felt something needed to be done, she did it. She always did everything that she could for the people that she loved in her life until her husband's dying day. She loved him, gave everything that she could. To her 4 boys, she thought the world of them, as like the rabbi said. They could do no wrong. It's an amazing quality, especially when you have 4 boys, because let's be honest, they do wrong. With her grandchildren, she always made such a priority to try to spend time and be there for them, whatever type of period they might be in their life. She was there to be able to provide them with the love and the care that they needed. And it wasn't even out of a factor that she was supposed to, or, that's what she's supposed to do. She couldn't contain herself. It exuded from her face. I mean, it was coming out of her ears. Even with her great-grandchildren, she was fortunate enough to spend some time with my daughter. I know that with my sister's kids, I remember one time I came home, and I think there was 4 great-grandchildren in there with her, and Ariel looks at me, she says, "This is great. I left him with Grandma all day." And she loved it. She loved children. She had such a love for children, whether they were her own, whether they were somebody else's. She just couldn't contain herself. You could be at a restaurant, she'd be pinching random kids' cheeks left and right, hoping it was, the cheeks on their face. I mean, she had such a love for life. With the high holidays coming up, there's a concept that we speak about. When we speak about how Hashem knows everything, what's hidden and what's revealed. If we look around us today, if we just focus on the things that are revealed, it's a bit depressing. We're here surrounded by tombstones. We see people who, unfortunately, their time on this earth has come to an end. And it's a very lofty concept, but if we could try to dig deeper and really try to understand what's hidden at this event right now, every single person here, whether it was through, a relationship, and even as little as a conversation, those are what we have today. Although this might be the end of a chapter in my grandmother's life, what will live on forever is the time that we were all able to spend with her, the feelings that she was able to share with us, whether they made us uncomfortable or not. It's something that we'll have forever. She lived to 95 years old. I believe my Uncle Jeff is 72. She got to see her son make it to 72 years of age. A lot of people in this world, they don't necessarily get to see themselves come to 72 years of age. So although this is a very sad time, it's also a very happy time. We're really celebrating such a life, 95 years. Marriage, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. She was able to experience it all. And I'm not Hashem, I don't know. But to be blessed with such Zman, to be blessed with such time, it comes from somewhere. And if I have to put my finger on it, it's just the joy. My grandmother was the happiest person I've ever met, even in the worst of times. Even in the hardest of moments, she had such a joy for life that, unfortunately, in today's world, it's something that we don't even see. It's not a stam thing. She had such a joy for life, and even until her final days, she was just so happy to be able to have this experience that is life. So I just would like to give a bracha, a blessing to everybody here and everybody watching with us, that they should continue that bracha with their own lives, with their own families, with their own children, with whatever, is put on their doorstep that morning, to just be able to seek that joy in life. And if we're able to do that, we're not really saying goodbye, but we're continuing my grandmother's legacy. Thank you so much.
Please.
I was fortunate enough to be firstborn, and so I have a history here. I know everybody that's here, and it is a sad day, but it gives me great joy to see Mom finally joining Dad. The stories will come out at Shiva. I just need to say two things to my mother that I know were her last thoughts and her last words. Mom, I know you wanted my brothers and I to take care of each other. I just have to tell you we're working on it. And your last words were, I'm sure. Did I do good? Yes, you did real good. Thank you.
This week's Torah portion of Nitzavim talks about the gathering of the Jewish people together for a third covenant. The three covenants were, one was at Chorev, was at Mount Sinai. Second covenant was in Arvos Moab, in the plains of Moab. And then the third one was here on the last day of the life of Moshe Rabbeinu. And each of these covenants represented a different agreement. The first agreement at Chorev was with the Jewish people that were there at the time. Arvos Moab was the new generation. But the covenant that was done today in Parshas Nitzavim, that was discussed in Parshas Nitzavim, was one for all future generations. And this notion of future generations is only perpetuated by family. And this notion that a covenant or an agreement should take place on the last day of Moshe's life is significant for each and every one of us. That it's through the Jewish families, that's the secret of survival for the Jewish people. We know that even when Bilam HaRasha wanted to curse the Jewish people, he was unable to because he saw the Jewish families. And he realized the strength of the Jewish families. And again, Chaya Elaine was so dedicated to Jewish families, to her Jewish family, that it was an inspiration to all other Jewish families. And this is what we have to take away with us from her life. That in order to perpetuate her memory and perpetuate all the good works that she did, we know that Ein Shechina, the divine presence, will only come through joy. And the joy that effused from her and from her personality and the happiness that she brought to everybody else is something that we have to emulate and bring into our lives. We ask that if we haven't given her proper respect, we ask her to please forgive us. She should be a gute better for the ganze mishpacha. She should intercede on behalf of all of her loved ones. And on the schus of that, may her family continue to go mechol choil, and may they again perpetuate her memory for the rest of us and enable us to continue to show joy, a simchas chaim, a joy of life, a joy of living, and as a result of that, may we be zochet to the ultimate geula shlema. Tenishmas etzrov etzrah chaim. This time we're going to engage in the burial, and we'll ask Is it okay if the rabbi flips the switch? time we'll recite the Tziddik Adin. Hatzur Tamim Palok Yechol Rochav Mishpat El Munavino El Tzadik V'Yashahu Hatzur Tamim B'Chopo Al Miyamar Lo Matifol Hashalik B'Matav Mo Al Memis M'Chem Mo Rich Al V'Yoal Hatzur Tamim B'Chol Maseh Miyamar Elo Mata Aseh Omer V'Yoseh Chesed Chinam Lalo Taseh V'Yishchu Senekad Kisek Shiva V'Yaseh Tzadik B'Chol Rochav Hatzur Tamim Yerchapayim Molirachamim, Chamol Novachusna, Alavo Suvonim, Yercha Adonis Lichos Yerachamim, Tzadik Hato Adonai Laham Yisrachi Yos Asher Yodcha Pikdon, Kol Ruchos, Chalila Lachos, Zichronin Limchos, Yino Einecha Barachamim, Elaine Bekuchos, Yercha Adonai Rachamim, Vyaslichos, Adamim Ben Shana Yichye, El Shanim Yichye, Maisron lo kilo hayaye, Baruch Dayan Hemes Mimi Sumchaye, Baruchu Kiemes Dino, Mshotei Dakobino, Mishalem Ladam Cheshbono Vidino, Akol Ishmo Doiteinu, Yodanu Adonai Kitzedek Mishpotecha, Titzak Bidvorecha, V'tzizke V'shoftecha, Milagachar Midas Shoftecha, Tzadik Hato Adonai V'yosher Mishpotecha, Tanamas Shofei Tzedek V'yemes, Baruch Daino Emes, Shchom Mishpot of Tzedek V'yemes, Nefesh Kol Chai V'yodecha, Tzedek Mala Yemincha V'yodecha, Rachem Al Pleitas Tzon Yodevecha, V'tomar L'malach Heref Yodecha, Gadol Hoitzav Rav Ashenecha Bekuchos, Al Kol Darchei B'nei Adam, L'seis Lishkid Rochav, Chifrei Malalav, Lagik Yoshua Adonai Tzvi B'lo Sabo, Adonai Nason V'Adonai Lakochi, Shem Adonai Urach, Urachum Yechmei Rov L'Yashchi, Subal Shivov L'Yechmei Rachom Asol. The rock, perfect in God's work, for all God's paths are just. God of faith without iniquity, righteous and fair is God. The rock, perfect in every work, who can tell God what to do. God rules below and above, causes death and restores life, lowers down to the grave and raises up therefrom. The rock, perfect in every action, who can tell God how to act. God whose word generates deed, do understand kindness, do undeserved kindness with us. In the merit of him Yitzchak, who is bound like a lamb, hearken and act. Righteous one in all ways, the rock who is perfect, slow to anger, and full of compassion. Please have mercy and spare parents and children, for yours, Master, are forgiveness and compassion. Righteous are you, Lord, to cause death and to restore life, for in your hand is the safekeeping of all spirits. Far be it from you to erase our memory. May your eyes compassionately take cognizance of us, for yours, Master, are compassion and forgiveness. For a person, whether a year old or whether living 1,000 years, of what profit is it? As if having never been, shall the person be. Blessed is the true judge who engenders death and revives. Blessed is God, for God's judgment is true. God scans everything with God's eye and recompenses the person according to the account and the just sentence. And all must give God's name acknowledgement. We know, Lord, that your judgment is righteous. You are righteous when you speak and pure when you judge. There is no complaining about the manner of your judgment. Righteous are you, Lord, and your judgments are fair. The true judge, judge of righteousness and truth. Blessed is the true judge, for all of God's judgments are righteous and true. The soul of all the living is in your hand. Righteousness fills your right and your power. Have mercy on the remnant of the sheep of your hand, and say to the angel of death, hold back your hand. Great in counsel, abundant in deed. Your eyes are open upon all the ways of the children of humankind, to give to each one according to their ways and according to the fruit of their deeds. To declare that the Lord is just, my rock, in whom there is no wrong. The Lord is given and the Lord is taken away. Blessed is the name of the Lord. And God, the merciful one, will forgive iniquity and not destroy, frequently withdrawing anger, not arousing the entirety of God's rage. We have a custom of placing dirt from Eretz Yisrael on the remains. And then afterwards we'll engage in the Chesed Shalem Astikura. Mm-hmm. So the custom is to place at least three shovels of dirt during the Chesed Shalemes, and we do not hand the shovel from one person to another, so that it doesn't appear that there's an eagerness to depart from our loved ones.
You can approach the mound on either side. Just be careful on the other end. And we do have some hand sanitizer if you get a little spritz in between.
No, no, no.
push the hook a little closer to grab the edge. Thank you.
Amay Rachamim Mishochein Bamromim. Habasein Chonachona Tachas Ganfei Ashina. Malos Kidoshim Mitarm Ksor Kirmas Nishmas. Hayrezel Bas Eliezer Abba Koin Shachal Yelama. Mavur Shmishpachta no Bim Litztok Bas Karas Nishmasa. Gadein and Temenu Chasa. Lochein Balachamim Yasti Rebesis Fal Yamim. Yitzror V'Rachamas Nishmas Varanoy Nachalosa. Senoch Shamish Kavo V'Nomar Amen. This time we'll recite the burial Kaddish. Skadel V'Skadei Shemei Rabbo. Yomaduhu Osi Lischadato Lachaya Mesayo. Lasaka Lachayom Hol Mivnei Karta Yerushalayim. Lashachlel Hechol Ebegavel Mekar Polchan Nuchromi Aro. Losova Polchan Edishmai Lasra. Yamlach Ushabrich Malchusei. Yikarei B'chai Echol V'yamei Echol V'charav B'Yis Yisrael. Agalav Yisman Korev Yromain. Yehei Shmei Ravorach, Yelamo Me'amayo, Yisparech V'yishtabach, V'yispaer V'yisrama V'yisnasei, Yissador V'yisaleh V'yisalol Shmei D'Kudshabrichu, Leilami Kabrachosav V'shivasa, Shivasa V'ne'amasa, Tamran V'yamo V'yromain, Yehei Shamo Rabba Min Shemaya, Chaim Olin V'yal Ko Yisrael V'yromain, Oseh Shalom V'yromo V'rachmo V'yaseh Shalom, Hallelujah, Yisrael remain. At this time, we ask people, friends, gathered relatives to please form a shura. To be at two sides of.
The boys of Mr. Stein, follow me. We're going to form 2 lines facing each other. The rabbi will be on one side, I'll be on the other.